magic from him, perhaps. It's a good ball. Grayson. It goes to Enzoball. Brilliant save indeed! Walsh has scored! Leicester City are in dreamland now! Vardy in the middle. This could be a huge moment. Vardy scored! And it's pandemonium in Leicester.
Mahrez with his left, Albrighton with his right. It is Mahrez. It's a good ball in. Morgan's there. It's in. Leicester City score. It is a captain's goal from Wes Morgan, who lifted the Premier League trophy in May. He might have played a big part now in taking Leicester City through to the quarter-finals of the Champions League.
Lift the trophy to the skies. Leicester City are the champions of the Premier League. 5,000 to 1.
Good. Wait, there's a Percy bomber, somebody just said. Is that true? Did somebody just say a Percy bomber? Or are they trolling? Oh, hello, everybody. Former QPR head coach Martí Cifuentes is emerging as a strong contender to take over at Leicester City. Admired by Leicester board for some time and has held talks. Cifuentes left QPR by mutual consent at the end of last season. Well, we were here to talk about Gary O'Neill. Imran,
Breaking news. Absolutely.
Martí Cifuentes has, it's caught me off guard there. I should have probably waited until like 1 minute past, actually, to see if there was anything. Well, hello to Imran. Hello to everybody in the chat. Imran's first time back on the channel for quite some time, mate. Let's go straight into it, Imran. Let's recap, because I know you've been busy in all of this. So let's start with this one. Yesterday morning, Leicester are moving to appoint a new head coach. Gary O'Neill and Chris Wilder are both on the shortlist, followed up by Rob Dorset yesterday evening saying Gary O'Neill now a front runner for the Leicester job. And then another one this evening saying Gary O'Neill is no longer in the running for the vacant manager's job. And now we have the Percy bomb that Martí Cifuentes from QPR is one of the names on the list, and he's a strong contender apparently. Just for anybody, just really quickly, I'll bring it up on screen. But yeah, I mean, Imran, you've not been on for a while, mate. But as usual, it's a bit chaotic, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, it's the rumor mill as well, right? There's a lot of talk because we haven't got a manager. So journalists, people who want to have a story get hits or likes on Facebook or Twitter and whatnot, come out with various names, right? So I think there's been a lot of that going on. Yes, the club probably have been talking to various candidates, probably not in an official capacity, but probably tapping them up. And then we get that news on Twitter and off these journalists. But let's be honest, we don't really know what's happening, right? But if Tanner's put that tweet out right now, Percy, has just put that tweet out in the last minute or so, then there must be something in it for sure, because he's quite close to the club. And I'll be honest with you, mate, Cifuentes, I've heard of him, but I've not done much research on him, I'm afraid. Like, I know that he did well at QPR last season, did what he could with a poor team, but I don't know much about him, mate. I honestly don't. I don't even know his history. You're probably bringing it up as we speak, right?
Yeah. I'm in the process of doing it, mate. So let's bring it up and have a look. Everybody in the chat, let us know what you think to the latest Percy bomber, Martí Cifuentes. Let's have a look here. So he was basically a nothing senior career as a footballer. Only 42 years old. Previously managed many teams abroad. AAB, Hammarby in Sweden as recent as 2023, and then he took over Queen's Park Rangers in 2023 and was there for 2 years until 2025. Let's see just what it says here. So he became manager on the 30th of October 2023. His QPR side kept their championship status after a 4-0 win, if you remember that, against Leeds United, which ultimately sealed Leicester City's promotion to the Premier League. Fast forward to 2025, it was reported his representatives had been in contact with fellow Championship side West Brom over the vacant manager's job there. QPR announced that they had put Cifuentes on gardening leave. The following day, it was reported that he was not on West Brom's shortlist to become head coach, and then he left by mutual consent in June. So what's his stats like here? So 82 games in charge of QPR, Imran, 27 wins, 24 draws, 31 losses, a win percentage there of 32%. Obviously, with a QPR side that are nowhere near the best or one of the best in the division. But he's a younger manager, Imran. Lots of people have different ideas on who they think should be the manager. We've been linked with a whole range of different choices, Imran. Danny Roll, which a lot of fans got on board with. Chris Wilder, Gary O'Neill. This Martí Cifuentes is very much in the younger, maybe modern thinking category.
Yeah, I mean, look, my initial thoughts are, for me, it's one that's come and hit me right on the side of my arm. I don't know where that one's come from. I think it's a risky appointment if we do pursue it, because I don't think he's proven. Yeah, he did a decent job at QPR for sure. But is that what we're looking for right now? Someone who's done a decent job at a little bit higher than that. But I guess beggars can't be choosers as well. Like, he may be a top manager. It is a risky, like Maresca was a risky appointment. This one could be one of those where if he does get the job, he might surprise us, but it's not something that the fans are going to warm to straight away. That's for sure. What's your initial reaction to that anyway? Because that's caught us totally off guard, hasn't it?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, 100%. It's taken me by surprise. I didn't expect that one. When we heard the Gary O'Neill, rumors the Gary O'Neill had not been. It was no longer one of the favourites a few hours ago from Football League World. I just thought maybe that would be it, mate. I thought I honestly thought that had sealed Chris Wilder. You know what I mean? With another one dropping out, we heard that Danny Roll might have been dropping out. I feel that was Chris Wilder signed, sealed, and delivered at that point. But Martí Cifuentes now in the frame. I'm just going to bring some bits and bobs up here so we can have a little read on a bit more detail on Martí Cifuentes. I'm just looking at the BBC article from when he actually left the club. So the decision to put Martí on gardening leave towards the end of the season was not an easy one to make. As we move forward, we'd like to thank Martí wholeheartedly for having a positive impact during the 2 years here. He did a fantastic job to help us remain in the division when he first came under difficult circumstances, and he had worked hard to repeat that again in 24-25. Wish him well for whatever comes next. Okay, so Cifuentes replaced Gareth Ainsworth in October 23. The Spaniard guided the R's clear of relegation, but last season it was slow to get going. They recorded just 2 victories in their opening 16 games, and they went almost 3 months without a win, leaving them bottom of the table in November. But a 2-0 win in Cardiff. Established players such as Jake Clark-Salter, Ilish Chair, and Jack Colback had been missing through injury, so they did suffer with injury quite a bit last season. His form did dip again, though, towards the end of the season with 2 wins in the last 12 matches in charge. Reports had begun to link him with the move away from Loftus Road, but he said, as long as I'm wanted, I'm very happy. He insisted he was aligned with the club. And yeah, it says here 5-0 hammering at home to title-chasing Burnley in the Hoops. Penultimate game of the season proved to be the final curtain as he waved goodbye to the fans in a lap of honour that signalled a painful end to his time at the club. So it sounds like a bit of a turbulent time in charge of QPR, mate. I'm not going to lie. I know he's highly rated. I've heard that many times that he's highly rated. However, it does concern me slightly, seeing that he really didn't have the best of times there. Maybe I'm being cynical. Maybe I'm just looking on the face of it. As you say, Imran, we haven't really had a lot of time to research him, to look into him properly, because he's come out of left field here. Let's have a look at some of the comments, Imran. Let's see what people are saying. Manny says Cifuentes is patient possession. How does that make you feel, Imran?
Not very good. But then you know what? Possession. I'm not against possession, right? I just want it to be a bit quicker. I want us to get the ball a bit more, be a bit progressive with the ball, right? Not just it because we need to pass it or for the sake of passing it. There needs to be a purpose behind the play. I can't really say I've watched QPR play that often, especially last season, because we were in the Premier League, so I didn't really pay much attention to the Championship. Apart from the top three teams, obviously that I was keeping an eye on the top three, but he did all right. Look, to keep QPR up is an achievement, right? And if he can't have been playing patient possession football. Maybe when he was losing all those games, he was, but he must have changed it slightly when they went on that decent run from January onwards. That kind of took them out of that relegation zone. And then they got dragged back into it towards the end of the season, didn't they? I think on the last week of the season, last 1.5 weeks, I think there was about 9 teams that could have got relegated, right, from the Championship. It was that close. But patient possession, I don't know. Like I said, I've not read much about him, but that doesn't inspire me at all, Locks.
Well, I was going to say that, Imran. Oh, are you there, mate?
Probably. Manny's probably. Yeah, I'm here.
Got you. Go on, mate.
Yeah. No, I said Manny's probably loving it, right? He loves this patient football.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say, Imran, one thing that has surprised me, because, I actually thought that maybe the next appointment wouldn't be too similar to the Enzo appointment, if you think back, to the style of play, because there were a lot of fans that weren't too pleased. However, Imran, this does go in line with what we believe Top to be, which is a fan of this style of football. We heard when he signed Enzo, he said to Enzo, I want you to make Leicester play like Man City, right? And Enzo was like, whoa, steady on. And even in recent weeks, mate, we've heard that that Top wanted a forward-thinking manager, a younger, modern forward-thinking manager. That's what Rob Tanner had actually said to me. He said that, that Top wants to play a certain way. He doesn't want Brexit ball, if you want to call it that, right? Which is why I was surprised that certain names had come up, like Sean Dyche. I was surprised that they were coming up. But the complete other end of the spectrum again, Imran, we've been relegated to the Championship. Of course, we've got a great squad for this level, but it looks like Top wants to continue, mate. He wants to play sexy football.
Yeah, and right now, with the squad that we've got, we still don't know what the squad is looking like, right? We've not had any incomings, we've not had any outgoings. So if we do keep the squad, which I don't think we will, he's got the right team to play that passing football still, right? We've still got that core team that can still play that sort of football if that's the direction we're going. Still got Vestergaard as well. He likes to play out from the back. So maybe that's what they're looking at.
Yeah, 100%. Let's see what some of the people are saying in the comments here. Hi, both. Speculation continues, says Blue Fox Forever. Big shout out, by the way. There's over 400 of you in here on YouTube and X. Patrick says, I had a feeling Cifuentes could be the unnamed candidate. It makes sense for him to get to be that JDP choice, the new Enzo. Anil says, Rudkin, we know you are watching. Locks just put a poll so Top knows who to hire. Absolute amateur hour. Fox Fanatic says, John probably hadn't heard of Enzo. Riyad Mahrez. Oh, sorry. Yeah, he's talking about something else. Ty says, talking as a Swede, he was seen as a top prodigy before leaving Hammarby for QPR. Would be a great choice, in my opinion. Rice says, wouldn't mind us signing Chair, who, of course, is his former player at QPR. Time to get a QPR fan on, Locks. Let's get the lowdown on him. 100% we will do that, mate. This is a great question, by the way. King Leicester, what the fuck is going on? Yeah, you bang on to ask that. Honestly, I've got no idea what's going on. It just seems to be left, right, and center. I mean, let me ask your thoughts on that, Imran. The journos always seem to be scrambling when it comes to Leicester news. They either, they're really late or they get things wrong or it changes. Do you think that's just because of how secretive the club is? Just not much information gets out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it is. I think it's so difficult to get anything concrete out of the club that any small rumor or any inkling they get off anybody is, like I said, it'll get reported on Twitter or whatnot. So maybe the Cifuentes has been spoken to. It's the words got out slightly. Maybe it's just been a quick phone call or a quick meeting just for an initial discussion, and it's already out there, but nothing obviously from the club as yet officially, right? We know they've spoken to O'Neill, we know they've spoken to Wilder, we know they've spoken to Deitch, but we don't know how in depth these conversations have been, right?
Yeah, 100%. Right, I'm going to move myself over there a second. Then I'm going to move you, Imran, slightly because we're going to squeeze in here. Let's get Manny in.
Manny's coming on.
Manny knows a little bit more than me. Well, he knows probably a
Yeah.
lot more than me on Martí Cifuentes. Manny, what's going on, mate? Interesting developments. Talk to us, mate. Out of left field. What are you thinking?
I don't know if it's totally out of left field if you think about...
Well, out of the blue, I mean. Out of the
Yes,
blue.
compared to what we've heard. But the one thing that, remember Rob Tanner said, is that Top likes Enzo-style football. They like patient possession football. And he was looking for a young version of that. And Martí Cifuentes, interesting choice. I remember we played him twice. Do you remember in the championship season? I don't know if he played... He kind of played the first game. It must have been Gareth Ainsworth then.
Yeah.
We won 3.
That game we won.
We won 3-1. We went 1-0 down and we won 3-1.
No, the first game we won 2-1.
2-1.
I think Wings scored the winner. Mabadini scored. I was at that game. And then the second game, they beat us at home, didn't they?
They beat us, I think, 2-0 or something like that.
2-1.
Although we did destroy them 6-2 in January in the FA Cup.
Yeah. Correct.
Now, this man actually comes from Catalonia. He comes from right near Barcelona, just north of Barcelona. And he is cited. I'm going to read something to you. Growing up during Johan Cruyff's Dream Team era at the Camp Nou, Martí cites that experience, particularly watching that iconic style of play against Atletico Madrid, as foundational in shaping his football philosophy. He went on to study at the Johan Cruyff Institute, deepening his tactical education, and later immersed himself in the renowned youth systems at Ajax and Millwall, of all places, further reinforcing his commitment to ball-playing positional football. So we'll skip the Millwall bit, but if he's gone to Ajax youth and he's Barcelona influenced, you are getting very, very close to what we saw under Enzo.
And I mean, Imran, I know you've already mentioned it, but does that disappoint you a little bit? I mean, or do you not really care as long as we go up? I mean, I know that you were frustrated with aspects of Enzoball. Does it concern you we're going back?
I think me and Manny are on the same page. It's not about the possession. It's about the slow, tepid play, right? If we were a bit more progressive with the ball, then no one's going to complain, right? A little bit more excitement. And I don't think we had the players under Enzo to cut it. Like, I know we got promoted, but that's why we weren't exciting enough. If we had a few more exciting players, obviously you have a better quality squad, which I don't think we gave Enzo. We would have been more exciting for sure. That's what I think. I think we just had come on, Vestergaard playing at the back. I know he played well for us in the Championship, but in the Premier League, he would have never have cut it. We just had a lot of slow twitch fibers, not those fast twitched fibers that Manny always bangs on about, right? And that's what we need.
Manny, though, I thought Danny Roll was a good choice because I thought it was, it's not as extreme as Enzoball, for example. He's a lot more adaptable, right? And he plays a more high energy, high press kind of style of football compared to what Enzo or Martí would do. But I mean, knowing you and your thoughts on football, are you happy? Would you be happy with this? Would you prefer this over Danny Roll?
It's a tight one between him and Danny Roll, to be honest. I'm not going to say I know enough about either of them to say I know the differences between them. I know that they're a similar profile of age, different nationality, of course, and they have a similar philosophy. I probably know a bit more about Cifuentes because it's actually his grandfather played for Barcelona B, and to this day, Martí Cifuentes is still a Barcelona season ticket holder. So he's a Barcelona fan. His granddad played for the club. He's born near the area. What style of football do you think this person believes in? And there was a question from Josh in in the chat, do you think he gives youth people a chance? Well, Barcelona have always given youth a chance. They've always promoted from the academy. They've always promoted from within. They have a really clear philosophy. Now, people think that I love this, and I like this. I like it, but I kind of agree with you. I think that era of football is phasing its way out. So it might be good to get on the back end of it. I think it would do a decent job, particularly in the Championship, it would do a decent job. But whether it would be enough to keep us in the Premier League is still that $1 million question.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good question. We're going to try and get Doc on because Doc, believe it or not, obviously he's from Denmark and Martí has links to Sweden. They're basically, basically the same fucking country, aren't they? Let's be honest. But Doc has actually got quite good knowledge on Martí Cifuentes. He has a lot of QPR friends, so Doc will give us an insight into him. I know Doc really highly rates Martí, and Doc will be happy with this. But with regards to youth, like the question here is, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. We'll have to do a bit more research. If there's anybody in the comments who knows what he's like with youth, then please let us know. I want to go through a couple more comments here. Zaid says he inverts one of the fullbacks and attacks with 5. Sounds super similar. Boggy says, what I don't like at the moment, it's so many different styles of management. I mean, let's talk about this, Imran. I said it to you earlier. We've been linked with Wilder, O'Neill, Dyche, Roll, and now Martí Cifuentes and, Russell Martin. This has been my concern all summer. Imran, that it feels like they haven't decided what direction they want to go in. They're just kind of, thinking, as time goes on, they're just doing it on a whim. I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, and this is where I agree with Manny, that this is where the lack of strategy is, right? Like, we just don't have a plan when it comes to style of play, the direction of the club, what sort of manager, are they youth oriented? We've got like I said, one of the best training grounds in the country now. We've got youth academy players coming out, left, right, and center. We've had, just of late, with Jake Evans, Monga, Page, etc. They're all exciting prospects coming through. We need a manager that's going to give these players a pathway, right? So they're probably the manager that they're looking at has to have that urge to play the youth, right? He's got to have that history of bringing youth players into the first team. So why are they talking to people like Dyche? Why are they speaking to people like O'Neill? I just don't understand. If they are going to go for this manager, then find that profile and stick to that profile. But I just think we're just a bit muddled at the moment when it comes to picking a manager.
Yeah, well, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Manny, because you've been telling us to not panic, but and I know you don't like to be too critical, and I know you don't jump to conclusions, but come on, Manny, you can admit here, mate, these different names, these different styles of football, it's a bit weird.
Yeah, I don't like that myself. I would like them to say, look, we want to play style X, and then we find the managers that play style X, interview them, and decide which ones are the best out of them, and get them on board. But the other way, it sounds like they're doing is, let's do due diligence. You could say that, look, we're trying to listen to all kinds of opinions, and let's see who convinces us. So they might have spoken to Dyche, might have spoken to O'Neill, might have spoken to Martin before, might have spoken to all of these guys. And somebody would say, you're doing your job then. You're speaking to everybody who's out there. And in the end, that's not a problem, as long as you come to the right conclusion at the end of it. And if this is having spoken to those guys, maybe they thought, yeah, do you know what? These guys at BTG are right. This is not going to work. We don't like this. We don't like this. So we spoke to them and it wasn't for us. And now, in the end, it's a journey, isn't it? That journey, as long as you end up in the right place, then it's worthwhile. And this guy will have youth experience. By the way, I think he managed in Denmark, so Doug should know him pretty well. But if he's worked in Ajax youth and had youth placement developments himself, he is now going to have to work with kids. And the style of football, we've asked this question, haven't we, about compatibility. Judging by the history of our recent history and the styles of football we've generally tried to play over the last 3 to 5 years, and the way that these Seagrave kids have been brought up, what style of football suits particularly this exciting crop of youth that we've got coming through? And I've said repeatedly, obviously Dyche and Wilder would not suit that in my opinion, but Cifuentes and Roll but Cifuentes, since we're focusing on him now, would absolutely suit that. That's why I said it's interesting. I'm not sure it's my first choice myself, but I think I can live with this one, to be honest, whereas I couldn't live with the others.
I'm in the same boat, mate. I would prefer a role, but I'll live with this 100%. Imran, I know you're going to go in a sec, mate. So because we're going to get Doc on, so we need to fit people on the screen. But before you go, out of all the names out there that we've spoken about and that we've touched on, who would be your number one choice? I'm curious. Would it be Dyche?
Still Danny Roll. Still Danny Roll for me.
Danny Roll. Okay.
Yeah, 100% Danny Roll. And even like my second choice is Andy King. I think why not just keep Andy King and give him a baptism of fire? I know he's not experienced, but he's taken up. Look, we're into the second week of preseason now. He's already working with the players. The fans love him. He knows the club inside out. Premier League winner, won 3 divisions as well. Obviously, he's won the League One Championship. He understands the club. He's been there since the Thai King Power Group came in. So why not? Why not give it to King as well? So that'd be my first 2: is Danny Roll or Andy King.
Okay.
Well, I think Andy King could probably work with Martí Cifuentes.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Andy King had his first ever game as taking charge of the first team. And what system does he play the very first half? He played Enzoball, didn't he? That's Cifuentes' ball.
Yeah, very true.
So maybe he was like, maybe Marty's watching on YouTube. Hi, Marty. I can work with you. Look. I get it. I understand what you're trying to do. I can be a coach under you. So I would absolutely want Andy King to stay as part of the backroom team. 1,000%. That would be a sort of non-negotiable. I would say, look, any manager that comes in has to keep Andy King on the books. There's no way we're letting him go.
Imran, mate, thanks for jumping on, mate. I do appreciate it. We'll get you back on again very soon. It's good to welcome you back, mate. We've missed you, so cheers, mate, and we'll see you soon. Cheers. All right?
Yeah, good to have you back.
Lovely stuff. Thank you, Imran. Right, here we go. Let's get him in. Now, before you start going off, Doc, let me just read this out because somebody's tagged me in it. So, when Martí Cifuentes took over the task of coaching Queen's Park Rangers in 2023, they were second to last place with a 6-point gap from the safety positions. They had suffered 6 consecutive losses. They only had 2 wins from their first 14. They were the second lowest scoring team and the third highest in conceding goals. At that point, he lifted the team to 16th place and officially secured their stay in the championship for another season. An excellent coach in crisis management. Would you agree with that, Duck? And tell us more. Fire away.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think his results speak for themselves, right? QPR have been in trouble for a while now, and he really came out. I think him and Roll are really, I don't want to say 2 of the same mold because they're very much different managers from what I know and the bits I've seen, right? But in terms of coming into a club in turmoil, which we are, getting them out of trouble, or at the very least improving the situation. Sheffield Wednesday would have gone down. Yes, they still have a shit owner, but they're still playing championship football, and QPR would have probably gone down as well without Martí Cifuentes. I haven't watched too much of Cifuentes ball, but having just, as I'm playing FM with some of my mates who are QPR fans, asking about them, they speak very, very highly about him. Obviously, as a QPR fan, they at the very least have huge sentimental value to him, simply due to how much he did for the club and improved them in their time of need. But one of the first things I really wanted to know was, what about youth? What's the status there, right? And the general sentiment that I got was, he's good with youth. He's developed and give playing time to many of the younger players and have moved them considerably. And that's really the main thing I took away from my short chat with him, because we just saw the talent we had against Peterborough. I need someone who can work with that and give them playing time and improve them.
Ty says the biggest negative with Cifuentes is he's strong-minded and will certainly clash with the board. Would you agree with that? I mean, that's probably a good thing. We don't want a yes man, do we? I
mean, I think that'll be very good. Obviously, he did have some issues with QPR towards the end, right? Because they completely, blew up the guy for injuries, right? The physio, one of the guys, he had to start working for an NBA club or something, and the club completely sold him out in the medical department because they needed the money or something like that. And that's really when the clash started, and he got put on gardening leave. And in the situation we're in with all the issues we have with our board, I'm happy if someone is there to challenge them and try and push them. So I think it's very good. We're potentially not getting another yes man here.
Manny, what do you make to everything Duck said, mate, about Martí Cifuentes?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, and I remember the games against him last season. I remember the away game when they beat us. I do remember that, and I remember because I think they were bottom of the league when Gareth Enders got the chop, or certainly close to it anyway, and they were really struggling. And Gareth Ainsworth was proper hoofball, right? That's really dino ball. He used to play for Wimbledon. I think he managed Wimbledon too. And he transformed them really quickly from being style A to doing the complete opposite. So it's kind of what Enzo tried to do with our players, like Wout Faes. You're now, instead of just charging forward and trying to slide and smash people, you're going to actually have to pass and be a bit more technical. So I kind of think that they just probably have looked at the situation and said, last time we went down to the Championship, this is what we went to, and it worked. So we're going to find the closest to that we can find again. This guy is free. He's on the market. No compensation required. He has experience in the league. He did a good job at QPR. He's obviously had a certain type of influence that they like. So he ticks a lot of boxes, and I think this is the only question that we're going to have is, are people ready to go back to being patient ball? That's where the clash is going to come. The first draw or the first 1-1, it's 92 minutes, and they're still passing it sideways and not hoofing it up front. It will kick off again. But that style did get us up. It did get us 90 plus whatever points, and at one point 97. We were 17 points clear. And I think Anil's made the point is that if it's like with this squad, it feels like the default system. So it feels like going back to what you know, and there's some solace in that because what we knew and at least worked in the Championship.
Doc, let me read this because people, yourself and Manny and others in the chat are making the parallels to Enzo. I'm going to read something here from the coach's voice that Martí Cifuentes said. He says, as a manager, I have now coached in Spain, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and England. It's always a challenge to try to play in a way that perhaps the players haven't been familiar with. For instance, Scandinavian football, especially Swedish football, has a tradition based on English football. In Sweden, they had the influence of Roy Hodgson. That was very zonal, very 4-4-2, very direct football. In recent years, though, that has been changing. And then he says, we had to be very clear on our identity to not change just because of 1 or 2 or 3 bad results. Now, there's many people out there that agree with that and having that mentality. I know one right here that agrees with that. But I do worry the patience of our fan base, Doc, if that is the right choice.
It's a big question, right? I think regardless of which way we go and how we act now, some fans will be unhappy, right? Because we all really want different things at the end of the day. I think it's the right move to make. I mentioned Cifuentes very early on in the process, like before we even sacked Ruud. I had other candidates like Danny Roll higher up on the list, but I think with the shit we've been fed for the past week, Martí Cifuentes is a pleasant surprise and sounds realistic as well, due to the fact that we don't have to pay the compensation. But I think regardless of whatever Top does now, there will be some critics, and it's about finding the decision that is right for the club, and putting that above all else, right?
We do have another update, this time from TalkSport. So take it with a pinch of salt, I suppose. Alex Crook, he says it's going to be Cifuentes. He says, looks like Martí Cifuentes will be the new Leicester manager. I'm told he's sorting his own compensation with QPR. Yeah, but Doc, because of, sometimes when they leave, it's mutual consent. He'll be getting paid still. So I think they have to sort that out, basically. It was the same with Graham Potter. There were problems with Graham Potter, if you remember, where you couldn't just come in and just get him for free just because he'd been paid off by Chelsea. He was still getting paid.
But from what I thought, Graham Potter was still just on the payroll. Cifuentes has left the club, left the club, and not just, put on gardening leave. So, I mean, I'm not too sure about that particular small instance. Regardless, though, from Gary O'Neill and Wilder, I'd much rather have this, and I think he has a higher ceiling. I don't think he's the man for 5 years in the future, but I think he could lay the foundation for some progressive football, and I think I think he could be very interesting to have, and I like that he has so much character around him as well. My QPR mates couldn't tell him if he would get the rich pricks we have in our clubs to settle down and just play good football and not cause a fuss, but seeing his general personality of being so outspoken and setting really high standards from the board as well, or for the board as well, I think he would be very good to deal with our, big experienced high earners, because he wouldn't tolerate that shit. He would be playing Monga over some of the older players because if they aren't training hard enough or whatever, right? And I think that's something that would really benefit us as well.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find more from this TalkSport thing, Manny. You go on talk away, mate, and let us know what you think.
I've got a bit more info about him if you want to hear.
Yeah, go for it.
I was going to read a little piece out to you. He frequently cites Cruyff's emphasis on positional football, quick decision-making, spatial awareness, and a winning mindset as core inspirations. This philosophy merged with his Scandinavian experiences from English-style direct play in Sweden and Norway to developing a fluid possession-based approach influenced by Ajax. Known for his optimism and self-awareness about inexperience, Cifuentes accepted criticism early in his career, being branded the worst coach ever in Denmark, apparently. But he remained undeterred. So what I'm saying is he's quite stubborn. So he's like Enzo. This is the way we play. And, if you don't like it, tough. That's the way it is. He credits his father's love of high-speed racing for instilling in him a risk-taking mindset, further shaped by cross-sport insights from basketball, handball and hockey. That last bit, I think, is very underrated. Cross-sport analysis I love that. I absolutely love that. There are similarities with wing play and basketball wing play, believe it or not. There really are. I've talked about Phil Jackson and the Chicago Bulls. It's about how to try and get 2-on-1 overloads in wide areas. How do you trick a defense so you get 2-on-1 slots out wide? And I have to say, if he's of that mindset, then I know what we're getting here, and we are getting Enzo again. That's what we're getting, effectively.
Doc, I mean, he is as expected when a big, when the Telegraph, John Percy speaks and TalkSport speaks, you can see here, mate, he has skyrocketed up the odds to 17-20, the second place there in the odds underneath Gary O'Neill, who again is reportedly out of the running. Sean Dyche now down there in 6-1. That seems like it's done and dusted. But I mean, it's with these in the last hour, mate, with all this stuff. I mean, according to TalkSport, it looks like it's going to be him. I mean, it's happy.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy. I mentioned him months ago now on our shows, right? And we were laughing a bit about it because it wasn't my preferred candidate, but I would take him depending on who we were linked with. I think I said that something around the same phrasing back then as well. I've just quickly Googled, right? Because I did just find out as well, he managed in Aalborg. I didn't watch much Danish football at the time, but apparently he didn't get sacked. He was, bought out to Swedish football, so he didn't get sacked. And one of the things the fans were a bit unhappy about when he left Aalborg was the fact that he had been talking about a very long development process of the team to the more modern football. So they were disappointed to see him leave through the back door, which is why he maybe not is the most popular. But I don't see anything mentioning why he would be branded the worst coach in Denmark, as apparently, he was good enough to get a pretty big job in Sweden and pay compensation to Aalborg.
He said himself, by the way, he said himself that he was a mediocre player, and he actually pivoted early in his career to coaching. He began coaching in his early 20s. He was at 21 years old. He was coaching under 19s, and he got fast-tracked, apparently, because of his game intelligence. So make of that what you will.
I was just checking here. I want to just double-check something. No, it doesn't say it here. I was just trying to see if Martí Cifuentes, because somebody did ask in the chat if he is under Wasserman, the agency we were talking about, but I can't tell.
I have a little thing here I'd like to read out. It's from when he got hired at Aalborg. This is what the sporting director of the Danish football club said about Martí Cifuentes. He said, Martí is one of the biggest coaching talents in Scandinavian football and has done a strong and some path. Having to translate this directly, he's made a very good impression in the talks, and he's gotten top references from different sides, and they're very excited to get the deal done. And then they say, as a coach, outside of just being an incredible football tactician, he has a reputation for being demanding and very hardworking, and he practiced offensive football. And when demanding is, the fact that he demands a lot from his players, right? He demands the hard work, putting in the hard yards and setting very high standards from the looks of things, from what this sporting director is saying, which is something I think we really need, because we need someone who can tame the big egos of some of the big players and not be afraid to throw them to the wayside if they're acting up.
Happy with that, Money? Happy with what Doc's just said there?
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like Manny is falling in love here. Well, I mean, sounds like we're all kind of, I don't know about falling in love, but it's growing on us, isn't it? You know, I'm happy to say, be the first to say, bienvenidos a Martí a Leicester, es un club con la historia especial en el fútbol y jugadores increíbles.
Crazy. Sure.
You can get the English subtitles in the if you're watching on playback.
Look, this is. Look,
do we agree with this? Do we agree with this? Other than roll, because
exactly.
We agree with this.
Yeah, we agree with it. I think that's the best way to put it. It's the best name so far. Who knows? With this soap opera, it might go on. There could still be another little twist. It's like an episode of EastEnders, isn't it? It's like there's a twist here, there's a twist there, and there might still be another twist to come. Still. There could be some situation with QPR, they're holding out for money or whatever it might be that we don't want to pay. So again, I wait till something gets announced, but I agree with that comment. It's the best name thrown into that. That's a very fair comment.
We have here now from Ben Jacobs, who has actually been very, very reliable this summer with transfers. Martí Cifuentes is likely to be named the new Leicester City manager. Parties currently in advanced talks with Cifuentes set to pay his own compensation clause, which is still in place after leaving QPR. So there is some kind of legality, legal thing in place after leaving QPR, but he's going to pay it himself, which would suggest, Leicester can't, which is why we don't have Danny Roll.
Yeah,
maybe Danny Roll wasn't willing to pay it. Roll wasn't willing to pay it.
He wants to pay his own compensation as well. I mean, it shows, if he's investing his own money to be able to take this job, he quite clearly wants it. He quite clearly thinks he can do a lot with the squad. And, even if you can say he's desperate or whatever, like that, I really, really like that sign, because at this point, we need someone who wants to be here, who, die to manage this club, and paying your own compensation. Well, that's a good start.
There's something else that I like about this is I'm starting to read bits that says he's not just like Barcelona. So maybe it's probably a bit too early to say he's just like Enzo. And a name that comes into my mind is Luis Enrique. Barcelona schooled, went through the same system, goes to PSG, evolves his play, changes his play, utilises different sets of tools, and plays throttle ball, which I like. PSG, I think they'll win the Club World Championship, by the way. Still the best team. But so if this guy does have the ability to play a certain way in the Championship, but again, evolve it on in the Premier League, but like I said, I think that maybe I am sort of talking myself into this one. It ticks a lot of boxes, and I'm struggling to see too many negative sides, apart from the fact that we might have to be patient again. I know a lot of people don't like it, but hopefully Marty says what we all wanted to say under Enzo is like, we like what you're doing, but can you just do it a bit quicker? Like, just do it faster. That's what we would really love to see. And hopefully he does that.
Yeah, I mean, somebody here says, actually loved this appointment, loved him at Hammarby, was very good in spells at QPR, but unknown if their end of season crash was him or the breakdown between him and the board. Somebody else said, let me go to the comments here. He ticks more positives than negatives. Paul says there is no way this guy is paying his own compensation. Next thing you know, it'll be Gareth Ainsworth as manager. Yeah. I mean, there's, this reaction isn't as strong as it was for Danny Roll, but it is, of course, a lot more positive than what we've seen for Chris Wilder, Gary O'Neill, Sean Dyche. And the difference now, by the way, guys, I know we've had rumors and we've had, snippets of info from journalists over the last few days, but we're getting three different things now. John Percy, Alex Crook, Ben Jacobs, they're all saying that Martí Cifuentes, or the latter, Jacobs and Alex Crook, are saying that it looks like Martí Cifuentes will be the Leicester manager. So, go on. What was that? Were we going to say something, Manny? You looked like you got excited.
I was, when you go through your WhatsApp history, I was just trying to see if said anything about Cifuentes before, because I like to send you old WhatsApp about things. And I wrote to a mate. I said, new manager I'm impressed with, Martí Cifuentes. He taught a bunch of average players an elegant and effective structure of playing in 3 months. That's very impressive. So
you have said yourself that you get players right, but you do often get managers
that's
wrong.
That's true. That is true. That's true. Go on.
I was going to say, Duck, mate. I mean, I was saying on the stream earlier that you've got lots of QPR mates. I mean, what are they? They're big fans of him.
They love him. They absolutely love him. But I think, as they said as well, they're not sure how much of it is just because of the fact that he kept them up, right? Because it did sour towards the end. And they are really, really big on him. And I mean, I've heard praise from him. I've been impressed with the results he's gotten at QPR considering the situation. Yes, we spanked them 6-2, but that was an FA Cup game. And I think just looking at that one game saying he's not good enough, I think that would be a gross oversimplification. I would like Roll more, but I like his edge. I like the character here. The football sounds interesting. I'll have to look further into that before really commenting on it, right? I did really like the game I watched from them last year when they battered Leeds and we got promoted 4-0. I did watch all of that game, but I was pretty drunk while watching it, so I can't remember the tactical small things. But I'm like looking for interviews with him, right? Because I don't know how many you do in England, but in Denmark, obviously, the coach does a lot of interviews. So I'll listen to some of them that he did while he was at Aalborg, but I'm looking at the comments.
There's a coach's voice one as well.
I've got that open as well. But like some of the comments here from Aalborg fans was, fantastic coach. We're so happy to have you at the club. Miss Martí Cifuentes at Aalborg. We would have been a top club by now. Instead, we were on the way to relegation. And they did end up getting relegated a few years after he left Aalborg. Like they were all really happy with him. Some fans said as well, come home to Aalborg. Like they were very happy about him. I don't know what that Danish thing was, maybe early in his career, but like the Aalborg fans seem very happy with him with what I can see.
Yeah, I mean, let me read these comments to you because I'm doing similar to you. I'm just looking at some of the replies to the Coach's Voice YouTube. By the way, nearly 700 of you in watching right now. 255 on YouTube, 450 on X. If you're on X, head over to YouTube and join the live chat. Let us know what you think. But here's some of the responses to the YouTube video. This guy is going to the very top. QPR stuck with him after an appalling run at the start of the season and now moving in the right direction. Youth players signing new deals and coming through. He's well thought of at the club. Super Marty, we love him at QPR. Another guy said, very impressed by how much detail Marty goes in analysis before every game. Always does the max amount of homework to be prepared and gain the edge in a game. It's very evident he doesn't try and take any shortcuts, which I respect highly. Somebody else says superbly. Yeah, so I love the way he explains wide triangles. So yeah, talking about obviously the style of play. Great manager. We're lucky to have him. Class coach QPR are lucky to have him. So lots of positive comments. Mate, I mean, I suppose looking at the reaction, Manny, it's hard not to get excited. It's hard not to get excited.
I'm just reading a bit more of my history, and apparently last year I was a fan of him because I've just sent you a few texts about some stuff I wrote about him, and I've like I said, I've forgotten a lot of that season, but apparently at the time he was doing an excellent job at QPR, clearly. And if you're from that school, then one thing you have to have intensity and passion, So this guy, I'm sure, will be very bright. He'll be very hardworking. He'll be very stringent and tough. I don't think he'll be soft on players at all. There's two ways you can be tough on players. There's the short sort of classic Sean Dyche, Chris Wilder way, or you can do it the sort of Pep Guardiola kind of way. He's not easy on players. You don't get away with too much. So, like I said, I'm trying to think of negatives. How about that? Trying to think of negatives. Look at it from the other way. And if I think of negatives, the only thing I can think of is it's not quite as cutting edge as I would like, but it does have the potential to be so. And that's the best I can come up with from a downside. Can you think of anything else that's negative from this?
Doc, any negatives, mate?
I mean,
you must have heard negatives from your QPR mates.
They were so happy about him that they were on his side about the club, but they're obviously unhappy about how their club is being run, right?
Yeah,
like they were unhappy about a club just demolishing their medical staff and sending one of them, I think, to Saudi Arabia or something to work for an NBA club instead of taking care of their own players. to save some money, right? So they are very much on his side. They were sad. Like he said, my QPR mate said, the saddest thing that could happen to them in the summer was him leaving. And then, a few FM sessions later, he was placed on gardening leave, and they are very sad about it. So, I mean, I guess the negatives could be if he's a bit temperamental, right, and a bit too set in his ways, that if he hits against his head against the brick wall, he doesn't try and change anything and just runs into it harder, even if what he's doing is not working. I guess that could be the one complaint, but I've liked him. I mentioned him on the show months ago, and he's not my preferred candidate. There would have been better out there. I would have preferred Roll, but we've just listened to 3 days of Roll being out of the picture, Gary O'Neill and Wilder. This is 10 times better, and there is not only a better manager, but also some of that excitement as well. You don't know how far he can really take you, and there is the buzz around that. And I think the best thing about him paying out his own compensation is, even if fans might not like his football and such, they can respect the fact he paid out of his own pocket to be here and coach us in our time of need.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good comment here. Manny, you all need to remember, no matter how good he is, will the board back him or let him down? And it's not even just that. I suppose it's can the board back him? That's the next question, right?
I don't actually think, though, that we need too much backing. And this is going to be a weird thing to say, but I don't want to spend too much money. A couple of reasons. One, I think we've got a lot of kids that actually could do the game time and they're good enough to go up with. But second, the less money we spend today, the more money we have for a real shot at the Premier League. And that's what we need to, when we get there, we need to be aggressive and have as much money in the pot as we can. And I think we need a striker, we need a backup goalkeeper, we probably need a left-footed centre-back and a left-footed midfielder, and we could shift 6 or 8 players, or potentially even more than that if we really wanted to, or if we really could. So I don't really think this is a project where you need 30 million quid and you're going to... Remember last time we spent 40 million quid, but half of that was on Winks and Cody. And I know Winks had a good season, but we have had other players that would have done a job that would have got us up. So I don't think we needed either of those 2 players. So I don't think we need too much. The thing is, I'm working on a basis that this league is as bad as I remember it being last time. Because I remember us playing pretty average at times and still winning games.
Yeah. I mean, I've just seen somebody online say, someone online just said Cifuentes ... stinks of being sacked by October. Which is great. Mad.
What I don't get is you've just spent days listening to Wilder and O'Neill being the most exciting candidates we have left. And when someone like this comes in, you're saying stinks of sacked in October. It could happen, yeah, but it could happen with any manager. But out of the ones we've been linked with recently, this is by far the least likely of it to happen. I have to jump off now, though. Great to chat a bit. And I think very excited that for once there's a manager that would actually make me smile a bit looking to join the club.
Yeah, cheers, Doc, mate. Nice to see you, mate. See you soon. Cheers for coming on. I mean, yeah, Manny, it's like, I mean, I think, we keep saying this, but it's true, right? That out of all the names linked, this is other than Roll, this is the most exciting, the most ambitious, you could say, out of the ones linked.
It was interesting looking at the live chat throughout the show today, and I've been trying to monitor it pretty closely, and we're seeing a lot of people that are okay with this, that are fine with this. And I think that's the kind of position that if they were looking at sort of, let's say they're watching this for a review of their idea. If that's the case, then we managed to talk Russell Martin out. We got Dyche out. We got O'Neill out. We got Wilder out. But this one we're not trying to get out. So this clearly demonstrates that I think most fans will be on board. You're still going to have the, those naysayers who are like, get it forward, kick it long, stop messing about, and all that stuff. But it makes sense. It's logical. It's what we've done before. It's our default. The players tried that way. We tried it under Rude briefly in the Brighton game. We tried it under Cooper briefly in the Southampton away game. I think we tried it in the Forest game for the first half. And we always look better playing that way. And we've got Ricky. We know what Ricky's going to do. It seems like Winks is going to stay. He's got 1 year left on his contract. Ricky's got 1 year left on his contract. So those two do that double pivot role. Your contracts will run out, and then it'll be adios time, and we'll have, bang, 2 new slots for the new squad, and that'll be good enough to get us up. We do need a striker. That's the other thing. We need a striker, but utilising our wingers is vital for the new manager. Absolutely vital. That's our massive strength. We've got Fatawu, electric. Mavadidi, electric. Monga, electric. We've got Jake Evans, who's going to be an excellent player there. We've got backups who are really good, like Casey and stuff. So we want somebody who's going to utilise their strengths. Give the ball to these guys, and they'll murder their fullbacks. And the chaos that will ensue is how we'll move forward.
I was just thinking, mate, Jamie's going to be fuming about this tippy-tappy football.
Well, maybe he'll come out of retirement.
I was going to say, I don't know what's going to be funnier. Seeing him rage at that. Well, I don't know what's going to be funnier. Seeing him watching tippy-tappy football or trying to say the guy's name.
No, I don't mean that. I don't.
Anyway,
I hope
bring this up, Manny. Let me bring this up quickly, right? Let me share this on screen, right? So here we go. This is just what Jacob Horsfield did last season. Can you hear this?
Is also a massive point for QPR this season, in my opinion. This does also allow for transitional moments to be possible and useful for QPR. If we look at this graph here, we can see that although they're not a completely direct counter-attacking sort of team, they still know how to utilise their moments and do so often and do so fairly well. For me, Lyndon Dykes is the spearhead of these transitional moments, doing what he does best by getting himself around. I mean, he's a big lad and acts as a proper outlet for QPR. He sits in the top 5% of Championship centre forwards for most touches this season and has also won 26 fouls, seeing him sit in the top 17% of Championship forwards for the metric. Now, this is fairly important to remember as just over 27% of QPR's overall XG in league action has came from set plays. This is another way that QPR can kind of get around the fact that they don't have too much technical quality in this side, barring a few individuals. The overall technical level of this team isn't amazing. However, I do want to zoom in on a couple of individuals that, for me, have kind of been the standouts for Martí.
I want to go back a little bit here as well.
Years now. But what they lost midway through last season was the flexibility of players around them individuals that would allow them to strive. Don't get me wrong, Moncler Martí is definitely a manager who wants to have the ball, wants to play out from the back, and wants his team to impose themselves onto the opposition through dictating the game in possession. I mean, a great show of that is the fact QPR are averaging 10 less long balls and 74.5 more short passes per match under Cifuentes than they did under Ainsworth. However, he also is not stupid and understands that in this division, with the players he's got, he doesn't really have the quality to get his system playing to its full potential, and maybe not the way that he would really like it to be played. Therefore, I would say that QPR have continued somewhat of an element of directness and have definitely continued that kind of rigid defense approach.
So that Manny there says that he's not 100% set in his ways, an absolute refusal to change his ways in any way, shape, or form. You know, he is happy to go maybe a little bit more direct when it is needed, which some fans, we joke about Jamie, but he would love to see that type of thing.
That was their criticism of Enzo, right? Is sometimes you're faffing, just especially when they're pressing you. Then it's the long ball is sometimes the smart ball, and that's what you want, is that flexibility. And to be fair to Enzo, I think he particularly, even more so at Chelsea, that he is allowing for that. But like I said earlier, this guy has managed in Scandinavian countries, managed in Denmark, managed in Norway, I think managed in Sweden too, and obviously he's managed in England. And so what you want is that influence coming. He's had influence from Spain, he's taken it on board. He's had influence from Holland in Ajax, he's taken it on board. And when you factor in the Scandinavian influence and English influence, that's quite a lot. That's a very fair range of styles that you've encountered. And obviously, he's tried to incorporate his own little twist on what you want. And that's what every manager's going to do, their own slight deviation from the basic foundations. So it sounds like he's got a solid structure, but within that structure, he allows the players to have that capability and creativity and allowance for play it as you see it sometimes. If it's not on, don't do it. And if your instinct says hit it long, then hit it. Don't be afraid to hit it long. And I'm not going to break your balls about it.
I messaged Graham. Graham messaged me and said, because obviously Graham's got money on Danny Roll, as did I. But Graham said, "I'm happy to lose my money, and with this guy's arrival, how do you feel?" So I said to Graham, "I don't think you'll like this guy. He's very similar to Enzoball." And Graham said, "I don't mind it as long as we use Manny's fast twitch fibers to get some goals."
Enzo did that, didn't he? Look, Enzo wanted those two wingers out wide. It's slow position based, but where you do get fast is the two wingers. You know, Mavididi and Fatawi was so crucial to the way that Enzo played. It's kind of about that. The whole rest of it is about getting the ball to those two fast wingers. I just want to see Jeremy Monga get game time this season. I want to see Lewis Page get game time. I want to see Aluko get game time. And it sounds to me the fact that Martí Cifuentes will obviously have that Barcelona influence, which is all about youth development and promoting from within. And obviously Ajax too. That's the other super famous youth school. You remember the Ajax 95 team that won the Champions League was, I think, might still be the youngest ever team to still do it. Absolutely incredible team that they were. So I like what I'm hearing, and it does make a lot of logical sense. Like I said, I'm racking my brains. And Anil mentioned maybe he might be a bit dry. I'm going to watch. There's a masterclass with him on YouTube. Coach's Voice. Coach's Voice. I am definitely going to be watching that this evening and seeing what this guy has to say for himself. But it's not just what he says. I want to feel how he says it, if that makes sense.
Well,
and I want. Yeah.
Go on.
I was saying, well, I want to feel like, is he the kind of guy that I'm going to buy into? And it was one crucial point about Enzo was those players that wanted to leave that summer. And they met Enzo, they did a week's training and they flipped and they went, I'm buying into what this guy's doing. And I hope that some of our players that maybe are a bit umming and ahhing, you never know, maybe we'll even keep one of the players that we assume is going to go because they fancy it.
You just want Wilf to sign up again, don't you, after chatting to Marty?
Look, we do need eights. Look,
although you did say you would tell him. You did say that this summer you would finally cash in. Well, you have to because he's got a release clause.
The reason so many clubs are interested in Wilf is because the price is so cheap. It's so cheap for what you're getting. It's so weird. They wouldn't take him on a free, but now at £5 or £9 million, he's a bargain. But I do think there's a point for. But I think it's more for Will's done his time. Wilf's done his time here. He's already got us up once. Let him go and enjoy a big fat contract at Man United or something and have his time out. I'm happy to make way. Like I said, it's about making space for some of these kids. So you do have to play us on. Anyone who's blocking that pathway needs to get out of the way. And my beloved Wilf, I'm more than happy if we keep him, but he's a high wage earner and we need to reset the wage structure. Any high wage earner, everybody, even Wilf, unfortunately needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's recap on the events in the last hour as we hit live. If you're watching this back, at the very start, I didn't even say anything for the first 5 seconds of the stream because I was reading the tweet. But literally at 7 o'clock, former QPR head coach Martí Cifuentes is emerging as a strong contender to take over at Leicester, admired by the Leicester board for some time and has held talks. Cifuentes left QPR by mutual consent at the end of last season. Then Alex Crook from TalkSport said, looks like Martí Cifuentes will be the new Leicester manager, told he's sorting out his own compensation with QPR. And finally, Ben Jacobs, Martí Cifuentes likely to be named the new Leicester City manager. Parties currently in advanced talks, with Cifuentes set to pay his own compensation clause, which is still in place after leaving QPR. And finally here, as you can see, he has risen up the odds, risen up the rankings there on Sky Bet. This is in particular 17 to 20. After we heard earlier today that apparently Gary O'Neill is out of the race to be the manager. So yeah, I mean, I just seen somebody say I just saw somebody say, I know, a lot of fans are excited for Roll, but he has a better track record, especially with younger players. And that's
those fans are just going to have to roll with it.
Hey.
There is a downside. I thought of a downside. I've been racking my brain. Yannick Vestergaard might be back in the team for his passing abilities. Oh God.
Yeah. Well, let's look at some of the odds have got even shorter on him now, apparently.
It's us probably ramping him up, chatting him away and all of this. All the BTG fans are in the chat piling on at the bookies.
Yeah, so he's now the clear favourite with the bookies as we speak. So 4-9, there you go. Let's see what the last load of comments before we end here, because by the way, there's nearly 800 people, a quarter of 1,000 of you. That sounds bigger when I say that instead of 250, quarter of 1,000. 250 of you on YouTube, 500 on X. Big shout out to you all. Make sure to hit like and subscribe on the video. But let's look at some of these comments. Blue Army says, so O'Neill, who kept Bournemouth up and Wolves to 14th, there was meltdown, but this guy who has done nothing is the next Ranieri. Okay, now we've already been through why we don't think Gary O'Neill's a good choice. You can go back and watch any of the streams. Anyway, I'm optimistic tonight. This is so much better than O'Neill, Wilder, and Dyche. Ben Nelson, people are talking about, we've got lots of time this summer to talk about who we think will be in our starting 11 for that first game against Wednesday. Sam says, it's a good appointment. His style is probably most similar to Enzo, which the squad was built for. Interestingly, Manny, this is the type of appointment we probably should have made when Enzo left or when Cooper was sacked. You'd think this is the type of appointment we should have made then.
Well, I've been going on about Willie Caballero for more than 6, about 8-9 months, saying that was a sensible appointment. Just repeating, get somebody who's trained in the system, get somebody who plays the same way as Enzo, get them someone with exactly the same philosophy, and you've just get the new guy in, and Enzo's gone. There's a new person, but the message remains the same. That's the key point. The message is what you've already been drilling yourself on. It's just a continuation of the work Enzo did. There's no change in pretty much anything. And that's the kind of thing that we've been asking for, is that the club chooses a style and stick with it. Don't jump from one to the other. Don't zigzag from one thing to the other. How are you going to have continuity in that way? So it sounds like that they've going back to Enzoball, which I personally loved. I thought we learnt so much. I learnt a lot about the game of football from Enzo and the way that he thought. It's one thing seeing Man City playing that way under Pep, but it's different seeing your own team 46 games, seeing it game after game, and what he's trying to do, I maintain. And what Martí Cifuentes will also try and do is highly smart chess. So, do I like that style of football? Yes. I think we managed to convince some of the old guard that that's not too terrible. At the end of the day, do you really want to go back to what we saw under Cooper or even what we saw under Ruud? But this will kind of be the best bits under Ruud, where we did have our moments. Remember the game under Man City where we lost the game, but we played pretty well. Lots of possession, lots of intricate passing manoeuvres. And sometimes under Enzo, we used to have passing phases of like 50 plus passes. I'm sure we scored a goal with 54 passes. I think Will scored at the end of 54 passes. That is some high level stuff in my opinion. And those of you who don't like it, I'm sorry to say you're going to have to just deal with it. And the good news for you though, it sounds like at least this guy is more adaptable perhaps than Enzo. Perhaps he is that way in the end. And maybe we'll see the best of both.
Well, I will say that if they have been putting names out there over the last week or so, gauging the fan reaction, which has been super negative, I think the reaction to this one online will mean they give him the job, to be honest. Finally, Manny, do you agree with this comment? The first forward step since Cooper's appointment? Also, I want to just caveat as well that I do agree with what Ryan said here. I think it's super, super important that we do make structural changes as well. It's not just the manager. We know this. Cooper wasn't the only one to blame, because yes, he had a big say in the players' money, but the reason he had a big say in the players was because of the structure. That's how it is at the football club. That needs to change. But
Absolutely.
It's a forward step.
It's a forward step, yeah, absolutely. And I think we do need to make that structural change. And like you've mentioned this before, and I think we just need to give more of that power to Martin Glover. You're head of recruitment. You pick our players. The manager can have a chat with you and have an influence, saying, "This is what I'm looking for. I need a winger who does this. I need a DM that specialises in this style of football. I need a passing centre back. I need a left-footing passing centre back who's good at diagonals." He can feed you the profile, but it's down to him to find the guy. That's his speciality, and his track record with Fatawi, Mads, Bilal, and Mavididi was good. Good value, good profile, good ages, excellent players.
Yeah. I'm just looking at here. Yeah, so many positive comments online. I just saw somebody say the fact he's willing to pay QPR himself to get here says a lot. I'm warming to this, but when you've been linked with Wilder and Gary O'Neill this week, it can't get any worse. Yeah, that is true. So he officially left QPR on the 24th of June, 3 days before Ruud went. What have we been doing for nearly 2 weeks? If he's announced, that's a good question. But they've clearly, we know they've interviewed other people as well. And yeah, I mean, but yeah, a lot of, is it our first Spanish manager? Someone says maybe so. And somebody did say that although I'm a fan of Danny Roll, I prefer the Spanish to the Germans anyway. So there we go.
We've had a Spanish player. We had Vincent Iborra, didn't we? Have we had any other Spanish players?
We had a Bora. Yeah, I don't know if we had. Did we have a Spanish manager? I don't think we've ever had a Spanish manager. I don't think we have. So, so there we go.
Viva
Right.
España!
Yes, exactly. Vamos. We can say Vamos now, like Jude Bellingham loves doing after his move to Madrid every game. We can start saying Vamos on the watch-alongs. Right. We're going to end it there. Thanks to the nearly 800 of you watching. Much appreciated. We will be live tomorrow at 7 p.m. for Fox's Den, where, of course, we will be talking all about Martí Cifuentes. So I'm sending I don't know who's going to be on the show yet, but I'm going to tell them they're going to do the research on Martí. Of course, if it continues moving as quick as it has this evening, and there is an announcement in the afternoon, in the morning, we will, of course, be live for that as well. But as it stands, 7 p.m. tomorrow. Big shout out to Doc. Big shout out to Imran and Manny. Thanks for joining me. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to hit subscribe. And yeah, that's it. Yes, there will be an emergency stream. As soon as he's announced, we will have a stream, of course. But if he isn't announced tomorrow, we'll have Fox's Den anyway at 7 p.m. So cheers, Manny. Cheers, everybody in the chat. We'll see you very soon. Bye-bye. Thank you to today's sponsor, Match Bingo. Over 200 grand has been paid out to players so far by taking sports betting, football and bingo and combining them into one brilliant app. Make sure to get your bingo card for any Leicester game in the upcoming season by clicking the link in the description or via the QR code on screen.